All right, here's a long question from Storm Shadows. He asked on my YouTube channel. So let me read it. So I have another question. It says, if you have a very large family and they all are in tree cutting business, older member of the family opens his business and for say 8 years has been running, let's say party A, Smith's Tree and Lawn Service. Now, several years later, a younger family member, Party B, decides to open his own business in the town next door, and he decides to use the name Smith's Expert Tree Care. Does Party A have a legal claim to say you can't open that new business with similar name because it infringes on his trademark, which was never trademarked to begin with? Now, if Party B goes and registers the trademark, would that give him, at that point, seniority to the name? Bottom line is both groups believe that they have the legal right to use last name since it is the family last name. Who would be right in this case? Does who filed first wins? Wow, there's a bunch of different questions here. My name is Andrei Mincov. I'm the founder of Trademark Factory, and I'm going to answer this question in a moment, just like I've answered a lot of other questions about trademarks and intellectual property in this channel. So if you've got a question for me, make sure you post it below as a comment, and I'll do my best to answer your question. And if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to get notified whenever the next video goes live. And if you post your question for me, that's how you're going to see the answer. All right, this is my answer to Storm Shadows' question. All right, so there's a few factors here. Whether it's family name or not is not as relevant. What is relevant is how strong or how weak the trademark is, right? So Smith's Tree and Lawn Service, unless they've gotten a huge number of customers all around the country, would not be considered a very strong mark, because tree and lawn service is just generic fluff that explains what you do. So the only thing distinctive about the brand is the word Smith's, right? Everything else you would be required to disclaim. You can't own any of those. Smith's by itself is not super distinctive, right? Precisely because you can have family members, precisely because there may be other Smiths out there, and Smith is not, too uncommon, which I guess is why you're using it in the example. So it would be a weak trademark, and weak trademarks give you less opportunity to go after somebody who may want to use a word or a name similar to yours. So this is one thing. And by the way, we'll have a video that addresses specifically weak trademarks, so make sure you check that one out. Now, the other thing here is seniority. That's a very important thing to understand. So in the US and in Canada, they recognize what's called unregistered trademarks. They call them common law trademarks, which allow you to claim certain rights to your brand, even if you hadn't bothered to trademark it through the official channels. If you haven't bothered to go out there and register your trademark with USPTO or with SIPO. You may wonder, well, if I don't need to register anything, why would I ever do that if I can still assert my rights, right? Well, not so fast, because your unregistered trademark gives you very limited scope of rights. It's limited to the geographical location where a substantial number of people know about you under that brand. And that means that every time you want to enforce that brand, you have to, first of all, limit your attacks to the same geographical area where enough people know about you, which would be okay if somebody opens the store next door to you with the same name, but it would do nothing for you if somebody wanted to open a competing store, let's say in a different state, right? So you've got your tree and lawn service in California, somebody wants to start a tree and lawn service in Minnesota. They can do that if all you've got is an unregistered trademark. It'll be perfectly legal for them to do that. So the geographical limitation, and also every single time you have to go to court and fight over your brand. If you don't have a registered trademark, you have to prove that a substantial number of people know about you under that brand in that geographical area. And that means you have to provide surveys, you have to have experts, you have to have all of this stuff to prove that you've been out there for a long time and that you've got this many customers and that you've spent this much money on advertising and that you've got all these articles about you, and that when regular consumers hear the words Smith's Tree and Lawn Service, they're thinking of you. And if you can't prove that, well, then you cannot win the case. And if you can't prove it, then, well, good for you. But the problem with this is that it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. Those surveys, those experts, they cost a lot of money. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars easily, and that's in addition to what you're going to pay to your attorneys litigating your case, right? And also the other side will be laughing all this time, just looking at you wasting the money, because they don't have to do anything. They just sit there and wait for you to prove it, right? So your demand letters are most likely going to be ignored because they're going to want to test if you've got the money and the balls to go ahead and enforce that unregistered trademark. So that's another element, that's another aspect of this of the story. And by the way, so in Canada, we had a case very similar to this one, to this fictional question that you asked. And I understand you may not be from Canada, it doesn't matter. The principle is the same. So there was a company, a flooring company, was called Woodpecker Flooring. They were operating in Richmond, which is very close to Vancouver. We've got this IKEA in Richmond. Like it's a city where a lot of those big malls and big stores and construction, the whole street there is for construction stuff, right? So they've been there for 20 years, called Woodpecker Flooring, and also hadn't bothered to trademark their brand. And then a new company steps in and opens their store literally across the street. And they did exactly what you're asking in this question. They went out and trademarked the word woodpecker. And the trademarks office, they don't check unregistered trademarks. They don't care about unregistered trademarks. All they care about are trademarks that are either registered or at least applied for. It has to be in their own system for them to see them and for them to care. So they don't see anything. They register that new company's trademark woodpecker. And now the new company found nothing better to do than to send a cease and desist letter to the old company and said, we trademarked your brand. Now you have to change your name because we own the trademark. And had the old company not responded to that lawsuit, to that letter, they would have lost the brand, right? Because the new company owns the trademark, and now they're presumed to be the valid owner of that trademark. And the old company had to do something, so they decided to defend themselves, and they hired a bunch of lawyers to go and fight the case that they had been there for 20 years. They're known under that brand in Richmond, and right across the street there's this new guy with this trademark. There's something wrong with that. So they win the case, and then the new company appealed, and the old company had to fight the appeal, and they won the appeal as well. So sounds like a happy ending, right? Well, maybe. There's a few big drawbacks from that. First of all, the old company had to spend a lot of money. I can almost guarantee that they spent over $100,000 on both the first case and the appeal. It's not an inexpensive thing to do if you're a business owner, so that's one thing. The other drawback is that all of this would have been easily avoided had the old company just filed a trademark for a fraction of what they paid their lawyers to fight the case, right? 20 years ago, it would not have cost them a lot of money to get that brand trademarked. And none of that would have happened, because if the competitor decided to open the store next door, they would have shown them, we got a registered trademark. What are you, a moron? Right? And the new company would have quickly stopped doing what they're doing. But the other thing, here's another big drawback. So just because the old company was able to stop the new company from using the store name, using that brand right across the street from the old company, well, guess what? The new company still owns the federal trademark. They couldn't invalidate that trademark simply by claiming that they were there first. Okay, you're there first, but all you're known in is Richmond, well, maybe British Columbia. That's it. That's all you got. And registering your trademark gives you rights federally. So the new company still owns that brand everywhere other than Richmond, Vancouver, British Columbia. That's it. So if they want to start woodpecker flooring in Ontario, they can. And guess what? The old company, if they want to expand beyond their location in Richmond, they can't do that under that brand because of the trademark that the new company owns. So that's really how this works. So to answer your question here, whether it's about seniority, yes, it is. It's still first to use in both Canada and US, right? You can prove if you were there first, you're using the brand, you're gonna be able to preserve your ability to run under that brand. Yes, it may cost you a fortune to do that, but from the legal perspective, yes, you're right. But your ability to expand is significantly limited. Your ability to enforce is significantly limited. So, so let me quickly go through this to make sure I answered all parts of this question. All right. Okay, so does the party have a legal claim to say you can open the new business with similar name because infringing on the trademark, which was never trademark to begin with? Yeah, so they can use their unregistered trademark to attack the new ones. Again, it's going to cost them an arm and a leg. And if Party B goes and registers, would that give them the ability to sue? Yes, it would. They would probably lose if the old company decides to defend their case, but if the old company does not defend their case, then the new company is going to win. So that puts the old company in an idiotic situation when in theory they're right, but now they have to spend all this money to defend their case. And most of this money they're never going to see back again because attorney fees are not going to be compensated, or at least not compensated fully. And in the best case scenario, they're just going to be back in square one. Right? They're not going to win anything. In the best case scenario, they're just going to remove the threat. And so bottom line, both groups believe they have the legal right to use the name and family. Okay, and just because it's family name, right? It doesn't really matter. It's a family name. If the name is so distinctive and one person ends up owning it as a trademark, that's it. Even though you share the same last name, too bad. It became the brand, and that's it. So, I'm just reading this new book from Tommy Hilfiger about how he built his business, and well, guess what? He's got a lot of trademarks. I'm probably going to make a video about that. Close to 300 trademarks he owns, names, logos, taglines, all sorts of stuff. There may be other people with the same last name, right? But because he built a brand around that name, that's a brand now. So even if you happen to have the same last name, you cannot start a competing business in the same category because Tommy's company owns the brand. Now, I hope this answers your questions. I really do. I hope I covered everything. And if I haven't, make sure you post a comment below, and I'll either just type the answer to the missing question or maybe create another video just like this one. And make sure you subscribe to get notified whenever the next video goes live. And until then, I will see you. I will definitely see you in the next video.